I'm Jeanne Cummings, and this is Craig Gordon. We're here for Politico because we have a new poll out called Power in the People, where we compare the attitudes of the general public with DC elites. In our second installment, we are focusing mostly on the performance of Congress and what do the folks out in the real world feel versus those who are inside the bubble in the beltway. So, Craig, you want to bring us up to date on what we've found?
Sure. It's pretty hard to get a lower rating than Congress out there among the general public, and it did a little bit better among DC elites, perhaps not surprisingly. Our poll found that only 11% of the general public gave the Congress an A or a B in their performance in the past few years, while in DC it was about twice that amount. So basically DC elites are saying, look, we don't think Congress is doing a great job, but we don't think they're doing as bad as the public did. So a little ray of good news there, but we're talking about basically 26% saying they did a good job. So they got a long way to go to get that rating up a little bit.
Isn't that the truth? One of the things that struck me too were the stimulus numbers, that the DC elites, 56% of them thought it was necessary and important, and how the public, 40% of the public think it wasn't even necessary to pass that gigantic legislation, which is so different than the tone and the urgency that we felt in this town when it was on the floor.
Oh, remember back to like 2 Februaries ago when pretty much Barack Obama was making the case that if we do not pass the stimulus package, the economy is going to crater, the global meltdown could continue, and it'll all be over. They have really, the White House has done a very poor job in selling that. I mean, they've spent $787 billion, most of which has gone out the door by now, projects all over the country, state budgets, a lot of red ink was sort of sopped up by those dollars, and the public in our poll is very down on the stimulus, and basically we asked them if they thought it was a waste of money, and a pretty healthy portion of them did. So that's a big political problem for Obama, considering how much money he spent to try to fix the problem.
And the other number that I found really interesting was on ethics. And this may be a case where the Democrats are thrilled to discover that the public is not fully aware of what's going on in Washington.
No, this is actually a real sort of silver lining for the Democrats. Charlie Rangel, who's been on CNN and on the House floor defending himself and pretty much saying to the Ethics Committee, bring it on, I'm ready to face the charges. Republicans have been kind of rubbing their hands with glee. Here you have a guy who in some ways could probably be made something of a symbol of Washington success. He's 70-some years old. He's been a committee chairman forever, been in this town for a long time. Accused of some pretty nasty things. Essentially, you're trying to feather his nest with a new public policy center up in New York. This is ready-made for the TV ads. Well, guess what? The public isn't really paying that much attention. Here in D.C., we're fixated on it. I believe our number was 56% of Washington is closely following the Rangel ethics, crisis. Out in the public, it's only about 30%. 1 in 3 voters basically saying, yeah, I'm aware of that, or I'm paying attention to it. That is great news for the Democrats, because I really do think Republicans were hoping this would be kind of like the Mark Foley scandal, I think it was in 2006, when it was kind of the last sort of, there was Abramoff and a few other things, and then Foley came along, and people kind of threw up their hands and said, we got to get rid of those bums.
Absolutely.
I think Republicans were hoping that Rangel would do that for them. These numbers suggest that probably won't be so easy.
Of course, the Democrats have to hope that it stays that way for the next few months, because the Republicans, if they're reading numbers like this, are going to find a way to elevate the issue and make sure that a lot more people actually are paying attention to what's going on.
And if Rangel gets his wish and sort of a full-blown, trial, quote-unquote, and it was not really called a trial, but, the whole story is going to be back in the front pages back in September when people are kind of shaking the sand out of their sandals and coming back to work, and that it could just give it new life again right there in the fall.
Absolutely, and they may have Maxine Waters, too. Well, so it's a pretty interesting poll to see how you're different from the DC elite. Go on Politico.com. It's posted up today, and you can read through the whole poll and see all the results. Thanks.